Good afternoon, Ms. Battaglia. How are you?
Okay, and how y'all?
Good. Would you please give the panel your full name and your Department of Corrections ID?
Danny Patrick Battaglia, 97479.
Thank you, Ms. Battaglia. My name is Alvin Roche. To my left is Mr. Pete Freeman, and to my right is Mrs. Bonnie Jackson. Let me explain the process to you. And I'm going to pull up your case. Just 1 second. Mr. Battaglia, I will read some information into the record. Once that information in the record, we'll conduct a parole interview with you. Appropriate time, we'll allow the supporters to make their statement. At this time, I'd like Ms. Jan Hogan to open her mic and introduce herself for the record.
Good afternoon, Mr. Roche. Jane Hogan here on behalf of the Parole Project, representing Mr. Battaglia, and I will make a brief comment at the end with the committee's approval.
Thank you, Ms. Hogan. Also, we have in support Mr. Karen Myers of the Louisiana Parole Project, your brother Andy, and your mother, Ms. Patricia Battaglia. And both of those would like to make a statement on your behalf. After we hear all the statements, before we vote, we will give you a brief opportunity to make a statement on your behalf. Do you understand the process?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Battaglia, you're 57 years old, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you are first felony offender. And I see that you are considered a juvenile lifer, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you had a life sentence and you were resentenced recently, and you received a sentence of life with the eligibility for parole after 25 years, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And your parole eligibility date is August 1st, 2017. You're not eligible for good time, and your full term sentence is life, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you were sentenced originally on April 30th, 1982 for second-degree murder, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So, 1 second. You were originally arrested on April 7th, 1981. So you've been incarcerated for about 42 years, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Your case has been assigned to Mrs. Jackson. Would you please answer Mrs. Jackson's question?
Yes, I will.
Mr. Battaglia, your case has been assigned to me, so we'll talk a little bit about your situation. I have a police report in front of me from a booking sheet, actually from April 7th of 1981, and your age listed was 15 years old. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So how does a 15-year-old get involved in such a terrible crime?
I was going through a rough time in my life at the time. I was cutting class in school. I was giving my family problems in school, around the neighborhood and at home. And I skipped school that day after I ran away with another guy, and we were walking through the cane fields, and we came upon this man working in the garden with his car parked nearby, and we decided we wanted to steal his car to ride. So we snuck up behind him with some tree branches, and we hit him. We got in his car and left, and we found out later on that day that he had died because of our actions.
Well, but that doesn't explain why. Why were you in trouble at home? Why were you in trouble at school? Why were you, out of somebody's car? What's the why of it?
I had a lack of respect for anyone else, for my parents, for my teachers at school. And I didn't consider any of the consequences, any of the actions I did.
Well, obviously y'all did more than just hit him over the head with a branch because he was beaten to death.
Yes, ma'am.
How old was your co-defendant?
He was 15 also.
But he was paroled a while ago in 2017.
Yes,
correct?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So let's kind of fast forward. You came into prison at age 15. Were you sent to Angola almost immediately?
I went to Quincy first. I think it was LCIS at the time.
How long did you stay there?
1 year.
Okay. And then when you made 16, how old were you when you came to Angola?
I was 17.
I see that you've had 64 write-up since you've been there,
Yes, ma'am.
and you had 2 in 2007, but then in 2018, you got a 30E. So why were you still getting write-ups recently as 2018?
Well, some contraband was found outside the main prison. And after an investigation was done, it was determined that I was supposed to go and pick it up and bring it in.
Or what was the contraband?
Some cigarettes and cell phones.
And when you say it was determined, that means you actually were going to go and somehow pick it up.
Well, someone told the security that I was supposed to go pick it up.
Well, if they tell them that wasn't the case.
I don't know.
And you ended up in extended lockdown
Yes, ma'am.
for how long?
4 months.
And that was your last write-up, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, in 2007, you had you got a contraband also in 2007, June the 5th of 2007,
I think so. Yes, ma'am.
and you got sent to the working cell block, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
What was that about?
It was determined that I had a piece that went to someone else's homemade torch in the hobby shop. And they wrote me up for contraband for that.
Why did you have it?
I didn't hear you.
Why did you have it?
Well, it was part of an airline It was for me. Cause I used it for my spray gun in the hobby shop.
Well, why would they write you up for contraband?
Because it fit what the other guy had as a homemade torch.
And then in December of 7, you had a Rule 28. What was that about?
I think that was because I was working in the kitchen at Camp J, and the hot dog buns we made for the evening meal didn't come out fat enough. So my work partner and I were locked up for aggravated work offense.
And you're gonna have to explain that one. We mean the hot dog buns didn't come out fast enough, so you got it written up. But
So they didn't come out fat enough, big enough. It came out real thin. And I was a baker's helper in the kitchen.
so, yeah, so you got aggravated work offense because you forgot some yeast. I'm trying to quite understand.
Oh, it had yeast in it. It didn't come out. They didn't come out good enough for security's opinion of what the hot dog should look like.
So I'm looking at your programming. You started taking some programming fairly recently, thinking for a change in 2020. I'm interested in why you took Inside Out Dad, because obviously I would assume at 15 you didn't have any children.
No,
Why would you take Inside Outside Dad?
because I was hoping it would maybe help understand why my father and I never got along.
Did you gain any understanding?
To some degree, yes.
What'd you learn?
That my father was trying the best he could, and I wasn't paying him enough attention. I wasn't listening to him enough.
Did you take Cage Your Rage twice?
No, man, I took it one. I took anger management, and then they came out with a new.
Cage Your Rage. So you took Cage Your Rage in 2000. I mean, you took anger management in 2006. And Cage Your Rage in 2023.
Yes,
Correct?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Why? Tell me about the AA and NA. Why did you take that?
Because back then, it wasn't a whole lot of self-help programs open to people with long terms. And I looked at it as something positive I needed to do in my life. And AA can apply to you whether you're an alcoholic or not. You can use some of the steps to work through your different problems that you have in your life.
Well, back when you were 15, were you using drugs or drinking alcohol?
No, ma'am.
Had you ever used alcohol or drank? I mean, drank or used drugs?
No, I didn't like the taste of beer.
And then tell me about the toy shop.
I've been working in there off and on for the last 25 years. On my off time, helping make wooden toys for underprivileged children.
Why do you do that?
It gives me a sense of giving back to society I took away from.
What's your job at the prison?
Right now I'm in small engine repair school.
Well, what other jobs have you had?
I was dorm orderly a couple of times. I spent 10 years in an auto mechanic school, I spent about 18 years on the main prison paint crew. I worked traveling around the state on special project jobs in New Orleans and Baton Rouge and Alexandria.
Doing what? What's your skill set?
Operating heavy equipment, welding, using the cutting torch, manual labor, different things, loading buildings up on flatbed trucks.
Are you still in the 4-stroke engine program?
I'm still in small engine, but I have a certificate in 4-stroke and electrical.
So if you were to be successful, what's your transition plan?
I'll be living at the Parole project for as long as it takes to reintegrate into society. And I have a job in Lafayette for an electrical company.
How did you obtain the job in Lafayette?
A guy that used to be up here started a company and he's willing to give me a job.
You was another inmate?
Yes, ma'am.
Where would you live?
Plan on living with my mom in Youngsville.
And how far is that from Lafayette?
Oh, I don't know, just a few miles.
Please.
Warren, what can you tell us about Battaglia?
Excuse me?
What can you tell us about Mr. Battaglia?
In your interview, you've been pretty thorough with him as far as his jobs. He worked at a main prison paint crew for several years. Did some work in carpenter crew. On a couple of occasions has held a Class A trustee status. Unfortunately, he's had write-ups that have taken that away from him. His last Min A was from 2008 until 2019. When he had a write-up. See, he's been a cafeteria tenant grounds keeper here in the last couple of years, and see where he's at right now. What is OPD? What are you doing currently right now? What is this OPD?
Outdoor power equipment technology.
That's a small entity. So he has in the past done jobs and been on state crews. And then he's had write-ups that's taken him away from it, unfortunately.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Freeman.
I have no question.
Mr. Karen Myers of the Louisiana Parole Project.
Good afternoon, Perry Myers, Louisiana Parole Project. Danny came to prison when he was 15 years old. Now served more than 42 years. I would not even imagine what it would be like to enter the system as a 15-year-old. It's the transition, the original years have to be difficult, but Danny earned the respect of many people there. He became a trustee. He worked in maintenance, as he told you, he worked on the paint crew, which is a general maintenance. They call it paint crew. It's a general maintenance crew. And he worked there as a trustee for any number of years, traveled around the state. It's unfortunate that while he was a tractor driver, the most recent write-up that he received was because he was a tractor driver who had unlimited trust, who could drive around the prison. I can't comment on the write-up itself. I do know that sometimes things happen, even out of their control. and especially when you have that kind of trust. I can tell you that Danny is a worker. When things need to be done, things need to be fixed, projects need to be done. Danny is the person, one of the people that they often call upon. He's got a strong family support. He's got employment waiting for him. He's got a parole project helping through the transition. His co-defendant that been released was a parole project client, actually one of our very first parole project clients in early 2017, who now actually works for the federal government as a warehouse. And so, yeah, I think it's indicative to say that Danny could follow that success and continue to do the same things. He made a terrible decision at 15. Had no idea, I think, of the full consequences that he did. Paid for that. I know that parole project, we really like to see Danny get his second chance. And I know that his family, been a long day inside. I know that his family would like to see Danny come home. They're prepared. We're prepared for him. And we'd ask this board to grant Danny his parole with any conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Danny? Well, let's hear from the person that has stuck with you thick and thin for all of your life. Ms. Patricia, would you like to make a statement?
What was that?
Would you like to make a statement?
If I have to.
Well, you don't have to. Would you like to? You can sit down, Ms. Battaglia.
Okay, thank you. I don't know where to start. I've seen Danny go from a rebellious teenager to a very responsible adult who is dependable, trustworthy, and I think he could be an asset to any place he would choose to work, because he's just so single-minded in the perfection of his work. And I would be more than happy to have him in my home. I have always wanted him home. He has two brothers nearby that can be of assistance, one older, one younger. And I just feel like he has abundantly served his time for his crime. And it's time to let him be free to make his own choices in life. He has matured to where he does know how to make responsible choices now.
Thank you, Ms. Patricia. Thank you. Danny, would you like to make a brief statement before we vote?
Yes, I'd like to thank the board members and anyone else responsible for giving me the opportunity to be here today. And I want to apologize to the victim's family, Mr. Willie Fonteith. You know, I've seen the pain and anguish I put my parents through and my family members through. So I can only imagine the pain and anguish and suffering that they've had to go through because of my actions. Saying I'm sorry just doesn't seem to cover it. It's an inadequate word, but I can't really think of any other words to say. It's my most humble apology.
Thank you, Ms. Battaglia. Attorney Hogan, would you like to close the hearing out for us, please?
Thank you, Mr. Roche. I'll be very brief. I know it's been a long day, but Ms. Jackson asked Mr. Battaglia what the reason was behind his actions. And at 15, there's no real explanation at all that could ever excuse what Mr. Battaglia did with himself or the actions that he took that day. His actions were that of a 15-year-old child who was scared to go home and face his father. And so he wanted to stay on the run for as long as possible, which led to the horrible decisions that he made, which ended the life of Mr. Willie Pontief. It is worth noting that Danny has always accepted complete responsibility for his crime. He confessed to police. He pled guilty to this, pled guilty to a life sentence. And in looking at these juvenile cases under Act 277, this board looks to whether there is evidence of maturity and rehabilitation over the last 42 years. And Mr. Battaglia's record has that rehabilitation and maturity. In '93, he obtained his GED. He takes classes that don't exactly apply to him, such as the AA programs that he got involved with as early as 1991, and the Inside Out Dads program that he took in 2022. Even though he doesn't have children, even though he's not an alcoholic, he is always looking for something positive to do, something positive to involve himself with, which really does show that he's matured, he's rehabilitated, and it's genuine. There was the write-up in 2018, but that is the only blemish on his record for the last 16 years, and it's been 5 years since that write-up. He's got tremendous family support. He has 25 years of service to others through his work in the toy shop, and we would ask this board to grant his request for parole to the Parole Project, and then eventually to his mother's house in Youngsville. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Hogan. Is the panel ready to vote? Mrs. Jackson.
All right, Ms. Battaglia, I really wish you hadn't gotten that write-up in 2018. But when I look at your age at the time of the offense, the amount of time you've served, there currently being no express victim opposition, and the support of the Louisiana Parole Project, my vote would be to grant your release.
Thank you, Mrs. Jackson. Mr. Freeman.
I concur and I vote to grant your release.
Thank you.
Danny, I too will agree with my colleagues that because it's a length of incarceration, there's no real victim opposition. The programming, and I especially like you've been working with the toy shop for 25 years. That is a testament of a person who wants to share his skills with the community. And that is one of my favorite things, hearing that an offender has enough compassion that he works all year long to supply toys for kids whose parents can't afford it, or other offenders' kids who are incarcerated. So my vote is the same. You'll have conditions. First condition is that you have a curfew from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. And I want you to do a little bit of community service to give back to the community, get with your pastor, get with your parole officer, and I want you to do 4 hours of community service every month. Good luck.
Thank you.
The early release has been granted.
Thank you very much.
Warden Falco,
Yes, sir.
that concludes our business at Louisiana State Penitentiary today. It's been a long day, and we're going to stand adjourned at 4:15 p.m. You have a good day.
You too.